Yes, he's in his more or less final stages of his re-up already. Could be that obviously he's not in team training yet, but I hope more or less pretty quick after the Hull game that he can return back to team training, perhaps even before the FA Cup game if everything works out right now in the upcoming days. So I expect him to be back available then perhaps after the FA Cup game, perhaps even for the FA Cup game. I'm not sure if he really will make it for this fixture, but it's looking good, and pretty soon he will be back in team training.
Just how demanding has this been on you this last sort of week or two?
Yes, it's exhausting to be honest. So you always have to be switched on to prepare, and then also pretty quick for the next. Opponent. It always helps when you have good results like we had in the last weeks, because then the mood is good and you see progress. And yes, once you're working in a position, once you're top of the league, and it's always an enjoyable situation, but still lots of work, and you always have to be switched on. Pretty exhausting game also today, because you always have to be awake. What happens during the game? How do you change and prepare for a few things? Obviously, yes, like I mentioned, so I expect a quiet January, but you also have to think about a few scenarios there and speak a bit about a few scenarios there. Yes, it's a busy period and a tough period, to be honest, in terms of workload at the moment, but I'm used to it, so I know that December, January, tough months in the championship, and for that, no complaints about that.
You know the abilities of your players. Do you feel could another player make this group better than what they are, or do you think you've nearly got your best now?
Yes. Of course, quality players always help, and to add a quality player with a good character is always good. But I'm also not a big friend of doing too much in January. Of course, if you're forced to do something due to injuries or something is really missing in the group, then you have to react, of course. But once you're sitting or head into January, sitting top of the table, to be honest, there can't be too much wrong within the group. And sometimes when you do then too much business, anyhow, it can also disturb a little bit the spirit and the vibe in and around the group. They're pretty tight together today, and you see this. Everyone is needed, and everyone chips in, and also the rotation. We need everyone, and we have a pretty tight group. I like this, and I don't like when the group is too big. And yes, obviously, when there are a few injuries, of course, then you would wish for a few more players. But once everyone is fit, and you have perhaps 4 players for one position, it could also be a bit negative for the spirit and the togetherness. And for that, especially once you're in a good run, you can't allow yourself to be too naive, to not stay awake till the end of the window if there is perhaps an opportunity. But on the other hand, also not to be proactive, to be too proactive if nothing happens in terms of injuries, and disturb then more or less the vibe and the momentum of the group. You have a pretty good group, and this is also the main reason why I don't expect much in January.
And the whole City managers starting to fall now. We've just gone.
Yeah.
The whole have gone through that as well. Do you expect a vastly different opponent compared to what you've already seen?
Yes, it's always tricky once a new manager comes in and brings his new ideas in, and then even after a few weeks, perhaps you see a few more changes than just after a few days. Anyhow, of course, it will be a different Hull side in comparison to what we faced here at Elland Road. So I expect this. But what is still the case? They have quality players. They have really good options in the offense. Of course, they are disappointed with their start into the season, or perhaps with the first half. But I'm pretty sure they will also try to use this home game also like to win also important points for them. And we're pretty aware that they will be a threat. And like the last away games, we have to be spot on in what we are doing, and also in our team selection and the whole setup, and to be at our best. In order to win further on pretty important points.
Graham?
I would imagine that Isaac Schmidt's eyes maybe lit up when he saw Jayden Bogle go down today, so to speak. Do you have to have conversations with a player to, well, not to explain yourself, but does he come to you and ask, why not me in that situation?
Yes, my door is always open, and once a player comes, he always gets an honest answer. Sometimes you're also proactive as a coach, in order to explain if you got the feeling there is a bit to explain. Of course, there are also some differences. Yeah, a player who plays more or less each and every game deserves perhaps a bit more explanation once he's not playing, instead of perhaps a player who is whatever 16 or 17 years old, like Sam Chambers, for example. I think that's quite normal and quite natural. For this, there will always be a honest answer. And yeah, for example, in this situation, it was more or less like the case. I was already thinking about changing to 3-man formation. Then in this difficult game, I wanted to have my captain on the pitch, and with Ethan, then we had the chance also more or less like to play with 3 centre backs, and this was the reason I brought him in, and not like a natural replacement like Isaac Schmidt, more like offensive-minded fullback who then of course can't play as a third centre back. So that was a bit the case. But yes, whenever a player has a question, my door is always open. Yes.
How fit was Max Fogarty today? I mean, obviously he looked quite sharp and contributed quite a lot, but it's had his problems, hasn't he?
Yes, I liked his performance today in the second half. He looked sharp, had also good chances, played a role in the build-up to the penalty. Was a bit worried because I thought before the game perhaps 20-30 minutes max would be capable to chip in, but after the first half I got the feeling so we can't afford Sam Byram to play 20 more minutes, because he looked so exhausted. Obviously then also complained a bit about that he feels exhausted at half time, and then yes, was perhaps a bit risky to play Max in 45 minutes, but he's also an experienced player, and I thought he could manage himself a little bit. And on the other hand, right now, after he came through it, it's also good for him to have another 45 minutes under his belt, and good to have him back. Pardon?
Just sort of on the season itself, like last year you went on this incredible run, January, February, March. Do you look at this current group of players and think you can do the same? Does it give you confidence?
I don't look too far ahead, so don't have a special point amount for January, February together. So it's more or less game after game. This is exactly how we have also approached the last games. And I would say we are already on a incredible run. I think it's the best Christmas run that this club has ever had. Sometimes someone told me in terms of points. So we are on a really good run, but you always have to be switched on the next game to make sure that this run continues, that you stay unbeaten, or hopefully you add another 3 points. And it doesn't work if you're just hoping and praying for it and thinking about, okay, it would be nice to add so many points in January and February. It's more like, come on, make sure that you also don't lose the next game, and in the best case scenario also win the next game. This is more or less how we approach, and then at some point we can look back perhaps, and hopefully we speak also about a really good run, but I'm not too carried away from thinking too much about last season.
Do you think you might need that kind of run, especially with teams like Sheffield United and Birmingham?
Well, we had this run last season, and we didn't get promoted. So for that, it's never a guarantee. If you want to finish in the top positions, one thing is for sure: we can't stop winning points at the moment. So we are right now on 52 points. We are top of the league. We are perhaps already with still after this game day, if I'm not completely wrong, with a point gap to position 3 that doesn't allow you to be promoted. So we are on a really good point tally, more than 2 per average. Like it a lot. But right now, if we stop winning points, so we won't make it in the top 6, and not to speak about the top 2. So for that, if you are there in and around 90 points, then you know they have a good chance to finish in a top position in this league. But right now we are just on 52 points. So for that, it doesn't matter if you win whatever next 10 games or the last 10 games. I would prefer to win all of the next upcoming 21 games. Probably won't happen, but we want to win definitely as many points as possible.